A drunk doctor crashed head-on into us. I had 3 surgeries, lost my businesses, and it took me over a year to drive again without flashbacks. I was 22 when it all started. I don't know exactly when my life stopped moving forward and started repeating itself. I guess everything broke that night. I was 22. I worked too much, slept too little, but I was happy. Truly happy. I had 2 small businesses that I had built from scratch. Nothing huge, but enough to feel like I was heading in the right direction. One was a clothing import business, and the other was more personal. A small cafe I opened with a friend. That cafe was my pride. It wasn't the prettiest or the biggest, but it had soul. People who came back, familiar faces, long conversations. The kind of place where time slows down a little. And I felt like everything was just beginning. I didn't have to go out that night. In fact, I was tired. I had been working since early, dealing with supplier issues, inventory, employees not showing up. The usual. But a friend texted me, "Bro, come through. Just for a bit. Just for a bit." The most common lie in the world. I went. Nothing unusual. Music, people, a few beers. I didn't overdo it. In fact, I was one of the calmest in the group. By 1:30 a.m., I was already thinking about leaving. And I left. That detail, I remember it perfectly. Because if I had stayed 10 more minutes, none of this would have happened. I left alone. The night air was cold, the kind that wakes you up a little. I walked to my car, started the engine, put on some low music. I was driving calmly. No rush. The streets were almost empty. And that's where everything gets blurry, but there are things you never forget. A green light. A long road. Distant lights. And then, lights that weren't where they were supposed to be. They were coming straight at me. Not from the side. Not crossing. Head on. I remember thinking something absurd. This guy is in my lane. There was no time to react properly. I tried to swerve. Brake. Do something. But when something is coming straight at you at that speed, there's no margin. Just impact. A sound I can't describe. It's not like in the movies. It's not clean. It's violent. It's chaotic. Metal twisting, glass shattering, your body taking everything at once. And then, silence. Not complete. But, strange. Like someone turned the volume of the world down. I tried to move. I couldn't. I tried to take a deep breath. It hurt. Everything hurt. But it wasn't a specific pain. It was, everywhere. Like my body was no longer one piece. The lights were still there. White. Flickering. And then I heard something. A voice. Far away. Is he conscious? I didn't respond. I didn't know if I could. Hey, look at me. Look at me. I tried to focus. A face. Then another. Hands. A lot of hands. Don't move him too much. We need the stretcher. Where's the ambulance? Everything was fragmented. Like my brain couldn't process it all. And in the middle of all that, I heard something I didn't understand at the time. It was the other driver. He was going the wrong way. The wrong way. That phrase didn't make sense until much later. Then I felt something cold on my neck. Immobilization. Stay with us. Don't fall asleep. Don't fall asleep. That phrase I understood. And I fought. I really fought. But the body has limits. And mine was already crossing all of them. The last thing I remember before blacking out was turning my head to the side and seeing the other car, or what was left of it, and an open door, and someone, stumbling, standing, while I couldn't move. Then, black. I woke up in a place I didn't recognize at first. White light, the smell of a hospital, a constant beeping, and a strange feeling in my body. Heaviness. I tried to move my arm. I couldn't. I tried to speak. My throat hurt. A figure approached. Relax. You're in the hospital. I blinked, trying to understand. You were in an accident. Accident. The word was too small for what had happened. I tried to remember. The lights. The impact. The car. The other driver. How long? I managed to say. 2 days, they replied. 2 days. My life had stopped for 2 days, and I wasn't even there to see it. I tried to sit up. Mistake. A brutal pain shot through my body. Don't move, they said. You have multiple injuries. Multiple. Another word that said nothing, but meant everything. What do I have? I asked. The doctor hesitated for a second, and that second scared me more than any answer. Fractures. Internal and external. Silence. We're going to have to operate. And that's where it all began. Because the accident wasn't the worst part. It was just the beginning. The word surgery didn't scare me at first. I think my brain still didn't understand the magnitude of what was happening. Everything felt distant, like it was happening to someone else. Until I tried to move my legs again, and they didn't respond. Not completely. Not the way they should. That was the first real moment of fear. Why can't I move properly? I asked. The doctor didn't answer right away. That silence again. That small gap that says more than any words. You have multiple fractures, he finally said. Pelvis, one leg, and damage to your lower spine. But we're still in time. In time. That phrase was the only thing I held onto. Will I walk? Direct. No detours. The doctor held my gaze. That's the goal. He didn't say yes. He didn't say no. And in that moment, I understood something no one had told me yet. Nothing was guaranteed. The first surgery was that same day. I don't remember going into the operating room, but I do remember the before. The hallway. The lights passing one after another above me. The sound of wheels. And my mind, racing faster than ever. thinking about everything that could go wrong, thinking about whether that was the last time I'd see the world normally. A nurse spoke to me. I don't remember what she said, but I remember her tone. Calm, like everything was under control, and that kept me from breaking right there. Then, anesthesia. Black again. When I woke up, the pain wasn't vague anymore. It was specific, concentrated, like fire in exact points of my body. I couldn't move. I had tubes, bandages, and a feeling of being rebuilt, but not finished. It went well, I heard. That phrase, that small phrase, gave me a breath of relief, but it didn't last long, because 2 days later came the second, and then the third. 3 surgeries in less than a month, each with its own recovery, each with its own pain, and each one taking a little more of the person I used to be. But the worst part wasn't the physical pain, it was time. Time, frozen, me in a bed, while outside, everything kept going. My cafe, my clothing business, my employees, my customers, everything I had built, without me. At first, I tried to stay in control. Calls, messages, instructions, do this, pay that, talk to that supplier. But reality is cruel, especially when you're not present. Things start to fall apart. Small mistakes, then bigger ones, orders that don't arrive, customers that leave, employees that can't hold on, and you, watching everything from a bed, unable to do anything real. My partner at the cafe tried to keep it going, he really did, but it wasn't the same. That place worked because I was there, and when you're not, it shows. 2 months after the accident, he told me something I already saw coming. Bro, it's not working. Silence. I'm losing money. More silence. I think I'm going to close. Close. That word hit harder than any diagnosis, because that, I understood perfectly. That was tangible. My effort, my nights, my sacrifices, ending like that. Do what you have to do, I told him. But when I hung up, I felt something break. Not in my body, in my mind, in my pride, in my identity. The other business didn't last much longer. Without me on top of it, everything unraveled. Bad accounting, problems with suppliers, and in the end, the inevitable. Closed too. In less than 4 months, I lost everything. Everything I had built in years, and I was still in a bed. Learning to sit, to stand, to walk with help. Like I had to restart life from zero, but in worse condition, because I hadn't just lost the external. I was also losing something internal. My confidence, my sense of security, my way of seeing the world. Because there was something I still hadn't fully faced. The other driver. I didn't ask much at first. I didn't have the energy, didn't have the headspace. But one day, my mother was in the room, and someone mentioned his name. Did they say what happened with the other guy? Silence. That damn silence again. What happened? I asked. My mother hesitated, and that was enough to know it wouldn't be good. He was drunk. The words fell slowly. Heavy. What? He had alcohol in his system. I felt something rise inside me. Something hot. Anger. And is he? He's fine. Fine. That word exploded in my head. Fine. Me. 3 surgeries. No businesses. Unable to walk properly. And him, fine. He's a doctor, she added. As if that explained something. As if that made it worse. And it did. Because he wasn't just some careless idiot. He was someone who knew. Someone who understood the consequences. And still, he drove. Was he arrested? Yes. But. There's always a but. It's in process. Process. Another word that means this is going to take time. And in the meantime, you're the one left with the consequences. That day, I didn't say much. But inside, something shifted. Because it wasn't just bad luck anymore. It wasn't just an accident. It was a decision. Someone else's decision. That destroyed my life. And the worst part was that I was just starting to understand how much. People think the worst part of an accident is the moment of impact. The crash. The pain. The surgeries. No, that's just the immediate part. What's truly difficult comes after. When the world keeps moving, and you have to learn how to catch up to it again. Rehabilitation started a few weeks after the 3rd surgery. And that's when I realized my body wasn't the same anymore. They sat me on the edge of the bed. Something so simple. Something I used to do without thinking. And even so, it felt like I was lifting tons. My hands were shaking. My back didn't respond the same. My legs felt like they weren't fully mine. Slowly, the physical therapist would say, always calm. Always with that patience that's almost intimidating. Because you know you're going to need it for a long time. Try to stand up. That's what he said. Try. Not do it. Try. I placed my hands down. Pushed. And for a second, I did it. I stood up. But it was just a second. Only one. Then everything collapsed. My legs gave out. The pain exploded. And I fell back onto the bed. Breathing hard. Frustrated. Humiliated. That's normal, he said. That phrase everyone uses when they don't want you to fall apart. But it didn't feel normal. None of this was. The next days were the same. Attempts. Failures. Pain. Small progress. Bigger setbacks. And the worst part, my mind. Because every time I failed, it wasn't just physical. It was mental. A voice that started growing. You used to be able to. You used to be strong. You didn't need help for this. Before. That word became an enemy. It took weeks before I could take my first steps with assistance. They weren't elegant, they weren't steady, but they were steps. And still, I didn't feel happy, because in my mind, it wasn't progress, it was comparison. I didn't want to walk like that. I wanted to walk normally, run, drive, live like before, but before didn't exist anymore. And that's one of the hardest things to accept. You're not going back to your life. You're building a new one, with broken pieces. Months passed. I improved. Yes, but slowly, too slowly. And meanwhile, real life kept charging me for everything. Savings draining away. Medical bills. Therapy. Medication. I didn't have my businesses anymore. I didn't have the same income. I depended on others. And that was eating me alive from the inside. But there was something worse than all of that. Something I didn't expect. Flashbacks. The first time it happened was during therapy. I was walking with support. Focused. Breathing. And suddenly, lights. Not the hospital ones. Not the room. Different ones. White. Bright. Coming straight at me. My body reacted before my mind. I froze. My heart started racing. Too fast. I couldn't breathe properly. Hey, relax, I heard. But I wasn't there. Not completely. I was back in the car. Back on that street. Watching those lights coming straight at me. I closed my eyes. But it didn't help. Because it wasn't what I saw. It was what I felt. Impact. Fear. Loss of control. When I came back, I was sitting down. Sweating. Breathing like I had just run miles. What happened? The therapist asked. I didn't know how to explain it. I just got dizzy. A lie. But easier than saying, my mind just dragged me back to the moment that broke me. That was only the beginning. More came after. At night. In dreams. At random moments. A loud noise. A light. A misplaced memory. And suddenly, I was there again. The same second. Over and over. And that's when I understood something no one told me in the hospital. The body heals, but the mind doesn't follow the same timeline. Almost a year passed before someone mentioned something I had been completely avoiding. Have you thought about driving again? The question came from my therapist. Not the physical one. The other one. The one helping me deal with my mind. Because yes, I got to that point. I needed help. No, I answered. Fast. Too fast. Why? The question sounded simple. But it wasn't. Because the answer wasn't logical. It was fear. Because I don't want to, I said. Another lie. Small. Useless. Or because you can't, he asked. Silence. That kind of silence that forces you to face yourself. It's not the same, I said. It is, he replied. And he was right. Because it wasn't a choice. It was a limitation. One I didn't want to admit. It took weeks before I agreed to try. Not just to move forward, but because I understood something. If I didn't face it, I would stay stuck there. Forever. The first attempt was ridiculous. I didn't even drive. I just sat in the driver's seat. The car off. Hands on the wheel. And still, my body reacted. Tension. Short breathing. That feeling that something was about to happen. Even though nothing was happening. Just stay there, the therapist said. Breathe. 5 minutes. They felt like an hour. But I didn't get out. I didn't run. And that was a victory. Small. But real. The second attempt was turning the car on. That's it. Nothing more. And the sound of the engine hit me. Because it triggered something in my mind. Something connected directly to that night. But again, I stayed. I breathed. I held on. The third attempt was moving. A few meters. In an empty parking lot, slow. Clumsy. Afraid. But moving. And still, every second was a battle. Against my body. Against my mind. Against that memory that refused to leave. Months passed. Many. Until one day, I drove on the street again. Not far. Not fast. But real. And when I got out of the car, I just stood there. In silence. I didn't celebrate. I didn't smile. I just breathed. Because I understood something in that moment. I wasn't getting my life back. I was learning how to live with what was left of it. And that was harder than I expected. But something was still missing. Something I hadn't faced directly. The man who caused all of this. Because while I was fighting to walk again, to work, to drive, he was still out there. And the story wasn't over yet. The legal process started long before I was ready. In fact, it began when I couldn't even sit up on my own. Lawyers, paperwork, medical reports, everything moving forward, while I was still putting myself back together. At first, I didn't pay much attention to it. I didn't have the mental space. But over time, it became impossible to ignore. Because every paper I signed, every document I read, reminded me of the same thing. This wasn't just any accident. It was negligence. The report was clear. Alcohol in his system. Speeding. Driving in the wrong lane. Everything. There was no doubt. And still, the process was slow. Painfully slow. Because he had resources. Connections. Good lawyers. Very good ones. And that changes everything. While I was in therapy just trying to walk without pain, he was fighting to reduce the consequences. To negotiate. To soften what he had done. And that burned inside me. A year after the accident, the moment came. The hearing. It wasn't a huge courtroom drama like in the movies. But for me, it was everything. It was the first time I was going to see him. Really see him. I walked in with a strange feeling. Not fear. Not exactly. It was contained tension, like something inside me had been waiting for that moment for months, and there he was, sitting down, wearing a formal suit, looking normal, like any other professional, as if he hadn't changed someone's life forever. I looked at him, and the first thing I felt wasn't anger, it was disbelief, because my mind expected something else, someone monstrous, someone clearly bad, but no, he was normal, and that made it worse, because it meant you don't have to be a monster to destroy someone's life. All it takes is one bad decision, just one. Our eyes met. 1 second, 2, and I noticed it. He looked away, quickly. That small gesture said more than any words. The hearing was technical, cold, full of legal terms, damages, liability, compensation, everything reduced to numbers and definitions, as if my life could be summarized in figures. But then, there was a moment, just one, when they let me speak. It wasn't mandatory. I could have refused, but after everything, I needed to do it. I stood up. Slowly, still stiff, and I spoke. I didn't shout, I didn't insult him, I didn't make a scene, I just told what happened. From my side, the impact, the surgeries, the rehabilitation, losing my businesses, the months without being able to walk properly, the flashbacks, the fear of driving, everything, no embellishment, no exaggeration, because I didn't need to, the truth was enough. And while I was speaking, I wasn't looking at him, not at first, but at the end, I did, and something happened. Something small, but real. His eyes weren't avoiding me anymore. They were down. He couldn't hold my gaze, and in that moment, I understood something I didn't expect. He knew exactly what he had done, and that was his burden, not mine. The result came weeks later. Guilty, license suspended, financial penalty, compensation, everything that legally applied. Justice? Not exactly, because none of that gave me my life back. Nothing gave me my body the way it used to be, or my businesses, or that lost year. But it did something important. It closed the loop, because it wasn't an open story anymore. It wasn't unfinished. It was something that happened and ended. The money helped, I won't lie. It let me stabilize, pay off debts, breathe a little, but it didn't fix the most important things. That, I had to do myself. With time, I went back to work, not like before, not at the same pace, but I went back. I started something new, smaller, more controlled, without that rush I used to have, because something in me had changed. I didn't want to run anymore. I wanted stability, peace, time. I started driving again, yes, but not like before. Now I'm more aware, more attentive, more human, because when you understand how fragile everything is, you drive differently, you live differently. Sometimes the memories still come back, I won't lie. Headlights coming straight at me, a sudden break, that extra second where your heart starts racing, but they don't control me anymore. Now, I understand them. They're scars, and scars don't disappear, they just stop hurting as much. Years have passed since that night, and if someone asked me, was it the worst thing that could have happened to you, I'd say yes, without a doubt. But it also taught me something I would have never learned any other way. Your life can change in a second. Literally. No warning, no preparation, and the only thing you really have left is how you choose to rebuild afterward. I lost a lot, a whole lot, but I didn't lose everything, because I'm still here, walking, driving, living, and that, after everything, is worth more than I understood at 22. And if I take anything from all of this, it's not anger, it's not revenge, it's clarity. Because sometimes the most expensive lesson isn't the one that takes the most from you, it's the one that shows you exactly what really matters. And that one, I'll never forget.